I hate to come into your building and ask you about a potential competitor, but maybe just a couple brief thoughts on the WTF as a whole, if you know much at all.
Who?
Exactly.
Hold on. You talking about the Christian place?
Yeah.
So tonight we're going to be doing a viewing party at Union Jack's.
Uh-oh. Hey, the gentleman V? I didn't see an X. Sweep the leg!
Wrestling Theology is more than just a wrestling show. We do the wrestling show and then we invite all of the fans out to... Son of a bitch. My mom has to leave a freaking voicemail now. We're more than just a wrestling show. This is where we build the community. We invite all the wrestling fans to come out and join us and live life together, have dinner with us, and watch wrestling together. I learned about wrestling when I was 2 years old. I was at church and some kid was playing with a Hulk Hogan action figure. And then my grandma bought me a Hulk Hogan figure. And it was my favorite toy, and then I found out that Hulk Hogan is a real person when I saw him on television.
Hulk Hogan and Big John Studd. And now you can fly them and flip them in the Sling 'em wrestling ring.
My sister was my wrestling partner, and we broke a couch. And then, of course, when I'd hurt her too much and she started crying, then I'd have to stop and play kitchen with her.
He doesn't even really come off like a boss, you know what I mean? He's like super lenient. He's just like a cool, like laid back dude. He's just a fan that just wants to like, I guess, kind of like help run a quality wrestling show within the Midwest area. Because there's not like a ton of them.
The most devoted wrestling fan you have ever met in your entire life, and that is no joke. And I want to use that as a way to reach people. And so he just started living that out.
If a miracle were to happen tonight and Dale Patricks were to cheat to win, he was fired.
When Rich Abbott came to me and said he had this idea of starting a ministry called Wrestling Theology Fellowship to get people who loved WWE wrestling and pro wrestling together, initially just to watch shows and Monday Night Raw and that sort of thing, I thought, oh, that is kind of strange. I wouldn't want to be a part of that, but hey, we want to empower people as a church, and so go for it, man.
We've been running wrestling theology shows since April 2017. On the day of a show, it can be a really crazy day.
Rich is not somebody who, he would naturally say this, he's not somebody who was a natural open communicator, dynamic speaker, come follow me and start something new. But it was, I believe, a calling. It was that he knew, I love this, I can do this, and he just went and did it. Even though everybody told him he shouldn't, he couldn't, he wouldn't, he did it anyway. And how many people in this world would do that? He is one of the biggest faith-driven people I've ever met. I'd love to have more faith like Rich, for sure.
Stay down, you shut up! You think it's funny? I think that's funny!
So working with the church, it's been mostly amazing. I mean, they've been really awesome with everything. There has been some hiccups with some things.
Our church has had a few people go, dude, this is a little out of the ordinary, and I'm not really a fan of this. We had a few people go there, think it was going to be a, Christian wrestling event rather than an outreach that people of anybody would be comfortable at. Not all the people that perform in this are Christians by any means. These are real people that are pursuing wrestling.
I don't identify myself as like being committed to like any sort of religion or anything like that. I believe in like anything and everything because I'm not like, who's to say, who like created humans or things like that. I could go on a whole spiel right now about like aliens and like our evolution and like things like that. But I believe in like God, the devil, I'm not a Satanist, but like, you know, aliens, evolution, you know, all that kind of stuff. So who's to say?
You know, people always ask, like, wrestling and Christianity, like, that's really weird. I don't understand it. If you look at the scripture, I mean, you have David and Goliath, and that's like always referenced in wrestling shows. But also, there's another analogy that I always like to bring, and that is that a lot of the best good guys in professional wrestling were always bad guys first. And if you look at scripture, there was a guy that was named Saul, and he was a really bad guy, and he would kill all these Christians, and then he later turned his life to God, and he changed his name to Paul, and he actually wrote like 2/3 of the New Testament or something like that. A lot of it. He wrote a lot of it.
One of the best stories of Wrestling Theology Fellowship in general is Rich Abbott.
I was at the bottom of the barrel. I was at the end of my rope. Didn't know what to do, and one Sunday morning, my girlfriend at the time, she was my ex-girlfriend, would not leave our apartment because my friend that she left me for was living with his grandma. And so she was at my apartment, in my bed actually, that morning on a Sunday, and I didn't want to be there.
And we were one of the first couple of churches he attended. He got involved. He grew in his faith. He went through a discipleship huddle.
The message was more like, you know, if your life is kind of messed up right now, maybe God's working in it because it can be for good. And I was like, well, my life was pretty messed up right now.
Then he learned, like, hey, I'm created for a purpose. I have spiritual DNA. What does it look like for me to live out the purposes God has given me? And for Rich, it was, hey, I really love wrestling.
Wrestling theology came about because I was in a men's huddle, and one of the guys was talking about how, you know, you've got this big, huge passion for wrestling and a new passion for Christ, and you need to find a way to combine those two things. I mean, the rest is history. Now we're putting on wrestling shows every month. So there's lots of different wrestling fans. There's the wrestling fan that loves WWE, and that's all they know. And they go to WWE SmackDown at Banker's Life, and that's the only wrestling show they ever attend. To those fans that miss out on the awesome wrestling action locally, you're missing out.
Zoom in on those. Those are 37 years of hard work in the ring. The bad thing is, the biggest one right there was done by my own son inside of a steel cage. Name is Don Basher. Age, not important. We're here at the WCWO Arena, 1151 South Kentucky Avenue, here in Indianapolis, Indiana, on the west side of town. I own WCWO Wrestling. I'm the promoter, I'm the trainer, I'm everything. One of the matches are inside the steel cage. And they contacted me for the ring in the cage. They bring out there to rent to them. No problem.
When we booked the cage match last month, we did have a cage lined up, and it was from a local guy. And actually, that fell through since we actually booked that one.
He was here Friday night during our Cage Fest. Granted, the cage is beat up and everything, because people hits the thing.
Right.
You know, if you've got a cage up here, you're not just going to run up here and just barely tap it. You're going to try to put the guys through the thing. You know, so it's bad, but it still holds up, still does the job. The guy calls me and says, I don't like the way your cage looks. It's going to look like crap on video. Can you build me a new cage?
From scratch?
And you know what I said?
I have no idea. It's appropriate.
You know, don't go say, oh, can you build me a new cage? Like, you got an extra $5,000, then I can build you one. So unfortunately, they went out to get them another ring and a cage for Friday night.
One of the awesome things, and one of the reason that wrestling theology really exists, is that we were able to help a single mother that's a wrestling fan that comes to our shows on a regular basis. She needed money for electricity to be turned back on. And then a week later, she needed money because she was going to be evicted. And this is all because she had some car problems that drained her funds. And she was down on her luck, and all she knew was that, hey, Rich is that guy that's the Christian wrestling organization guy. Maybe he knows something. And through that, I was able to contact Mercy Road Church, and I was talking to my buddy Phil, who co-leads this whole thing with me, and we tried to figure out how we can help her out. And what happened was Mercy Road Church was able to get the electricity bill paid with their benevolence fund. And then with the eviction notice, we were able to come together. Mercy Road covered some of it, and then Wrestling Theology people helped cover some of that as well.
We have seen people's lives and families transformed. Let me give you an example. There was a guy who hadn't stepped foot in a church in well over a decade, wanted nothing to do with church, came to a Wrestling Theology event, was blown away that a church would have this. And I've got to see him every Wednesday night here with their family, growing in their faith, studying the Bible, and it's all because of Wrestling Theology. So how many ministries out there could say they had that type of true impact? There are churches around the country that will spend the next decade and never lead a single person to faith. And Wrestling Theology has led dozens. And so it's incredible to see the impact it's made in people's lives. And the reason that's important, it's not just that they came to faith, that transforms the family. That family now is living and looking differently because of the impact that Wrestling Theology made.
I would love for us to get our own facility and have our own wrestling church slash performance center where we could have training of wrestlers, have our own venue set up at all times, be able to put shows on whenever we want, and have church right in the middle of a ring on Sunday morning.